virtually every city that has a street paper across the United States, there are only 35, has a Starbucks. Okay? And if they aren't engaging with members of the homeless community in that manner, then, it's kind of um, sort of speaks to their agenda, speaks to their mindset towards the homeless community overall. If you're not we all know that the crisis of homelessness and anyone who is suffering is an economic crisis. It's an economic crisis. And they don't want to get involved in the economy. They don't want to support one of the best um, solutions to homelessness, which is a street paper. I asked them, I wrote a letter to them, and they turned me down. So for me, it seems that Starbucks is trying too hard not to be racist, to have this sort of inclusive image. Everyone's invited here. It's sort of a mission statement from the company, but it doesn't play out in the day-to-day interactions. I'm talking about an experience I just had, and this is Starbucks that I go into all the time. But one of the people that was working there, one of the baristas, was new. He wasn't one of the people who knew me, I guess. And man, they had samples, and I was sitting there. There were several people at the table. I was the only African American sitting there, and he came around and he offered the sample to everyone but me, and then he just walked away. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to say, "Well, look, you skipped me. Why did you skip me?" But it was so obvious. I went up to the counter and asked them what they were sampling. It turned out to be uh, coffee, which I wouldn't have taken anyway because I'm trying to wean myself off of caffeine. But it speaks to the whole dynamic that um, Starbucks has, there's sort of a racist dynamic there, and they try to live out their mission statement of including everyone, of being all inclusive, especially people who are experiencing homelessness. Um, we can go in there for the most part, and we're treated differently because we're like the guests. We're like the ones that their badge to show that, yeah, we do have diversity. We do treat all humanity um, with respect. And I didn't get it at first because first I didn't even know you could go in Starbucks and get what do you call it, a drink, a glass of venti ice, a grande. I didn't even know that was part of their um, you know routine, or part of what they do, um, part of what they offer. So I was surprised and very happy because when you live on the streets, there are not a lot of options. I was at that point connected with our local street paper, the Ground Cover News is what it's called. And I'd be out selling and have to go to the bathroom, or it'd be hot and I want, maybe get a drink or just go sit down. And when I found that I could do that in Starbucks, I was like, this is the best company I've seen. And I wasn't familiar with their mission statement at that point, but I read it and I said, when I start making money, I'm definitely going to, you know, continue coming here and spend my money here. And I've done that. But over time, I began to recognize that their demeanor towards me is as um, being a homeless person who is welcome, and that we are going to, you know, put out the red carpet for you because you're homeless. So it's almost like a show. And it seems sincere. I mean, I'm treated very nicely on that level, but I'm more than just a homeless woman. I'm actually, I'm a professional. I'm an educator. And I just found myself there because I lost everything in a huge teacher layoff in the city where I worked. So, um, in my working years, I didn't know a lot about Starbucks. I was just, get up and go to work every day. And I heard a few things about Starbucks, how the media depicts or hearsay or whatever, but I never experienced it firsthand. But what I'm starting to say, when I started sort of showing that, well, I'm a professional and I come here to read, I come here to write, um, the demeanor towards me began to shift. Um, I don't think they know what to make of me, to be perfectly honest, because they would be offering me things, and I'm like, you don't have to offer me things. I can buy them now. I earn a living, albeit by street paper. I earn a living. I tell you what, why don't you take out an ad in the paper because I sell advertisements and show your support that way. That way I can get back on my feet and I don't have to be the homeless person coming in here. There was a lot of um, vagueness and, you know, they didn't quite get, and I had to be passed on from one. There wasn't like uh, so, an immediate response of of sort of course, this is what we should do. There was I don't want to say reluctance. They gave me the card, but I think they knew that when I wrote to um, corporate, what the response would be, and the response was that they don't do ads. Well, let me tell you about the street paper first of all. Virtually every city that has a street paper across the United States, there are only 35, has a Starbucks. Okay? And if they aren't engaging with members of the homeless community in that manner, then, it's kind of sort of speaks to their agenda, speaks to their mindset towards the homeless community overall. If you're not play, we all know that the crisis of homelessness and anyone who is suffering is an economic crisis. It's an economic crisis. And they don't want to get involved in the economy. They don't want to support one of the best um, solutions to homelessness, which is a street paper. I asked them, I wrote a letter to them and they turned me down. So I think that um, they have racism embedded in their stores. Where I go, there's pretty much no blacks. They have built Starbucks in black communities, and people come from black communities and they think, well, I'm going to Starbucks. It's not the same. Every community more or less governs its Starbucks um, uh, atmosphere. Starbucks itself doesn't say we treat all people equally. No, they treat people according to the climate of the neighborhood that they're in. And the neighborhood where I'm at, is uh, is upper white middle class. You don't even see a lot of African American students coming in there. Just a few, every now and then. But it's a very tense environment. I notice that I'm there all the time. It's a very uh, tense um, and certainly not racially diverse environment. And, they have a few token homeless individuals so they can keep up their uh, pledge or whatever to help people. But I go to other uh, uh, cafes or coffee shops now, and I go there. I pay. I know what I'm there for. People look at me funny because I got a backpack. I look visibly homeless. I'm not ashamed of that. People can make of me what they want to, but that's what I do. And I actually feel that I feel more comfortable because there's not people putting on that strain, the welcome mat, so to speak, the welcoming committee concept. If anyone's familiar with Raising in the Sun, they sort of had to welcome the black family because they weren't part of the norm. So come on, it's obvious. Uh, what people think of you. Sometimes they overreact, and that's what I get a lot at Starbucks. I don't mind them being friendly towards me, but let's get down to the nuts and bolts. It's an economic issue, and unless you're investing into the communities that are hurting, then you're really not helping at all. So that's my little bit about Starbucks. I really hope that they will. The meeting I'll talk about in another video. That's a whole nother video. But yeah, um, Starbucks has a ways to go in reaching true diversity. All right, this has been Let's Talk, and I will come back and talk to you soon.